Right, so today we're not in the shop, we're in the garage. And we're not really working on anything today. Um, but I wanted to kind of go over a couple things that kind of went down with the old Silverado here a little bit. And maybe what I discovered on my truck might help somebody else out and not have them go through all the troubles I did. So, the old Silverado here, it's an '08 with 5.3 liter in it. It had developed what we thought was an engine knock. And every time you fired it up, when the engine was cold, it would knock really loud. And what sounded like in the lower end, so like where your pistons and your rod bearings and all that good stuff are. And it would knock for a minute or so until the engine would get warmed up. And so I took it to my mechanic and we kind of messed with it, and both of us kind of thought it sounded like a rod knock is exactly what it sounded like. And it would knock long enough until what we thought, the oil was getting circulated and it would go away. So I kind of weighed the options of just trading the darn thing off. But with the way truck prices are nowadays, you can't find anything worth a crap that isn't an arm and a leg. So then we thought about rebuilding this engine, the engine that was in the truck originally. But I was kind of in a time crunch and was wanting to be a little more in and out and be able to get it back on the road type situation. So we decided that I would just purchase another engine and we'd just do an engine swap. And that was a battle in itself. These 5.3 motors, they're very popular for engine swaps in older vehicles, and there's just not very many out there to get that are rebuilt and ready to go. We checked Jasper engines, and we checked, they didn't have anything. They weren't going to have anything for 2 or 3 months. Went to like Speedway Motors. They didn't have anything. We checked 2 or 3 different places. Nobody was going to have a rebuilt engine ready to go for 2 or 3 months. So I started checking around online. I found Fraser engine and transmission rebuilders or remanufacturers or something like that. They said they could have one in about 3 weeks. And they have, I'll see if I can't put a link somewhere. They have several different options for the 5.3 liter. You can get just a basic rebuild with OEM parts. You can get one that's been upgraded with better quality parts. And I think, don't quote me 100%, but I think they have an option where you can get a rebuilt engine that they do away with the active fuel management deal. I'm running the chip, the disabler chip, still, and so I didn't opt for that. You can also purchase, I think their standard warranty is maybe a year, I think, but you can purchase a 3-year or you can purchase a 5-year. Of course, the cost is a little more. They did want the core, the old engine back. It was $500 core for the old engine. And so I opted to get the rebuild engine, and we put the rebuild engine in. Now, one of their things for the warranty from Fraser's is anything that has to do with, like this engine has an oil cooler. So it has oil lines that run from the engine to the radiator. They said in order for the warranty to be held up, you had to replace the radiator because the engine oil runs through the radiator and they don't want any contaminants getting into their new engine and messing up bearings or something like that. So that was no big deal for me. I had already decided that we were going to if this truck needed it, and if it had to do with the engine and the truck needed it, we were putting new in. So we put new engine oil cooler lines in because the old ones were leaking anyway. We put the new radiator in, which that I hadn't planned on doing, but Fraser's, for the warranty, they required it. Has all new hoses, all new belts. Put a new water pump, new oil sending unit, new temperature sending unit. Like I said, when we got in there, my mechanic, he said, hey, your transmission cooler lines, the rubber's seeping on those. I said, just replace them. So pretty much anything under here, the power steering pump's still the old pump, but pretty much anything to do with the engine, it's new. Even had to put a new battery in it because it sat for so long. I was starting to have troubles with the battery last winter anyway. So this is pretty much everything under here is new. I'd put new valve covers on the old engine. I'd put new coils and new plug wires. So anything to do with the engine is pretty well new. So long story short, we get the new engine put in, rebuilt engine, however you want to call it. And lo and behold, we fire it up. Guess what? There's still a knock. And my mechanic says, well, maybe that new engine's got a bad rod. And I said, there's no way. There's no way that two engines can have the exact same problem, especially when one of them's supposed to be rebuilt and ready to go. So we did a little more investigating. My mechanic has an automotive stethoscope. Kind of like a doctor's stethoscope, except for it has a long metal rod, so you can touch that metal rod onto certain things and you can hear better what noises are going on. And come to find out, the passenger side catalytic converter is what was causing the knocking sound. So anytime you'd fire the engine up cold, the insides of that catalytic converter would knock until it got warmed up and expanded, and then it would quit. And so took it to a muffler shop. They replaced the catalytic converter on the passenger side, and now it's perfect. It makes no noise whatsoever. Probably could have got by if we had figured that out sooner. I probably could have saved myself a ton of money by not putting a new motor in this truck. But the lifters had been rattling every time you started it up. The lifters rattled pretty bad. So it was going to wind up needing a top-end build anyway, eventually. The motor had 206,000 miles on it before we put the rebuilt motor in. But this thing has a lot more power now, runs a lot better. I'm still good with putting the rebuilt motor in. This truck should last me a long time now. So just kind of thought I'd put that out there, let other people know that, hey, just because you have a knock that sounds like it's in your engine, it may not be your engine. I know flex plates, automatic flex plate, they're big on braking on these trucks and cars too, for that matter. And they'll sound like a rod knock, but they continue to knock all the time. This one, it went away after the engine warmed up. So just something to think about. Maybe this will help somebody else out. Check your catalytic converter before you start putting a new motor in, or you just say it quits on a vehicle because of a knock. So maybe this will help somebody else out. You guys have a good one.